Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery for another Dhamma talk. This morning we'll be talking about the qualities of the Buddha. This is from the standard list, which is found in many places in the suttas, and which is one of the most commonly recited verses in Buddhist monasteries in the Theravada tradition. So we'll start by paying homage to the Buddha, and then I'll go through this verse of the qualities of the Buddha and talk about the meaning of each word and how this relates to our practice. So we'll start with homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sammasambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So in the suttas, in many places, we see the Buddha speaking about the recollection of the Buddha as being a highly beneficial practice, a practice which is supportive to awakening, practice which helps to incline the mind towards awakening. So, for example, in the Anguttara Nikaya, we see suttas where the Buddha says that the practice of buddhanussati is something which causes the mind to incline towards awakening. We also see suttas where the Buddha recommends recollection of the Buddha as a remedy for fear. For example, in the Vijjacarana Sutta, the Buddha says that when one is afraid, then one should bring to mind the Buddha and remember the qualities of the Buddha. And this is also an inspirational practice in that it helps to remind us of the noble qualities of mind which we are also capable of developing within ourselves. So recognizing that when we recollect the qualities of the Buddha, these are not just the qualities of some other unattainable being, but rather they're qualities that we ourselves can experience. So through our own practice, we can actualize these qualities within ourselves. We can develop the same qualities of the Buddha within ourselves. So I'll start by reciting the recollection of the Buddha, and then I'll go through it word by word. So the recollection of the Buddha goes like this. Itipiso bhagava arahang sammasambuddho Vijjacarana sampanna sugato lokavidu Anuttara purisadammasarathi Satadevamanussanam buddho bhagavati. So the first set of phrases, so itipiso, this is grammatical introduction, so it doesn't contain anything of deep meaning. So iti means in this way, or thus, or as follows. Pi means furthermore, or also, and so means him or this. So itipiso is just introducing, like this is what he's like, or as follows. This is what we're talking about. This is the being that we're talking about. So itipiso, that phrase is just introducing. Grammatically, it's introducing the sentence. So the first quality of the Buddha that's listed is bhagava. So bhagava comes from the word bhaga, which means literally it means a portion of something, a share of something. And usually this means a share of wealth, a portion of wealth. It means to have a part of something valuable. So the bhagava, the suffix va here, or vant would actually be the root form of it, means one who possesses or one who has. So bhagava means one who has wealth, one who has a share of what's valuable. one who has that which is worthwhile, that which is important. So bhagava then literally it means one who has wealth, one who has something of value. And this is a term that was commonly used both in the time of the Buddha and also up to modern day times in India. The term bhagava was commonly used to mean as a title for a highly respected spiritual teacher. But also apparently in ancient India, it was also used in a more ordinary secular sense to mean a wealthy person who would share their wealth with others. So the bhagava was one who had wealth, had valuables, and would share it with others. So these meanings then come together in the term bhagava. So what is a bhagava? It's someone who has attained spiritual wealth, something of great spiritual value. So they have reached some particularly remarkable stage of spiritual development, and they share it with others. So it's capturing the meanings from the word bhaga, the meaning of both wealth and of sharing, of portioning. So the term bhagava gets translated in a variety of ways, none of which quite capture the actual meaning of the word, but you'll sometimes see this translated as the fortunate one, which is relatively accurate. And if we take fortunate here as meaning one who has fortune, one who has wealth. It's also translated in other ways, translated as the blessed one, which is a bit of a different take. So it's emphasizing the idea of the spiritual wealth, the idea that one is full of blessings. One has the blessing of having a high self-development in spiritual practice. And also that one is sharing those blessings with others. So sharing the blessing of spiritual development with other people as well. You'll also sometimes see bhagava translated as the sublime one. So sublime here emphasizing that this is a particularly exalted or remarkable state of being. You'll also see it translated as Lord, which I'm not particularly fond of, but it seems to be pointing to one of the older uses of this word as meaning a wealthy, ordinary person who would share their wealth with others. But I do think that of the current translations, Lord is probably the least accurate. Fortunate one is perhaps the most accurate. Blessed one is also okay. But it's good to understand. So bhagava means one who has something valuable and who shares it with others. That's the actual meaning of this term bhagava. So itipiso bhagava arahang. The second term is arahang, which is a grammatical form of the word arahant. So people are usually more familiar with the term arahant or the Sanskrit form arhat, which literally it means one who is worthy. So this comes from the verb arahati, which means to be worthy of something. So an arahant is called a worthy one because this is someone who is worthy of respect. They're worthy of support. They're worthy of appreciation. So the idea here is that an arahant is someone who has reached the highest perfection of spiritual practice, the highest development of wisdom and compassion. And this is something which is infinitely respectable. It's somebody who has reached an extraordinary level of spiritual attainment is the most respectable kind of person, a person who is the most worthy of admiration, the most worthy of veneration, the most worthy of support. So in Buddhist literature, an arahant then, especially in the early Buddhist literature, arahant means someone who is fully awakened, who has reached the highest culmination of spiritual wisdom. So the term arhat, then you'll come and see it translated as the worthy one. which is quite literal. Again, the literal meaning of arahati is to be worthy. So translating arahant as the worthy one is quite literal. You'll also see it translated as the perfected one or perfect one, which is less literal, but which is pointing to the actual usage of this term in the early Buddhist literature, and that it's somebody who has perfected their spiritual qualities, who has perfected their spiritual practice to the point where they attain full awakening. In later Buddhist literature, in particular in the Mahayana sutras, the term arahant came to be used a bit differently. So this is important to know for those who study both Theravada and Mahayana, that the term arahant in the Theravada texts has a different meaning than the term arahant in the Mahayana texts. So in the Theravada texts, the word arahant means somebody who is fully awakened, fully enlightened, who has completely removed all defilements and all delusions, and has completely eliminated all self-centeredness, and has reached the highest pinnacle of spiritual practice, and who has no further spiritual practice to do because they've already reached the pinnacle. In Mahayana literature, the term arahant is used a bit differently. It's used to refer to somebody who has reached a very high level of spiritual purity, but is not yet completely pure. Someone who has eliminated most of their self-centeredness, but still has a little bit left. So in the Mahayana literature, then the term arahant came to be used to refer to somebody who is close to full awakening, but not quite there yet. So this is actually what in the Theravada literature is called a non-returner. So the stage prior to becoming an arahant. So this is important to know if one is studying both Theravada and Mahayana. It's important to know that the term arahant is used differently. So in the Mahayana text, what's called an arahant lines up more closely with what is called a non-returner in the Theravada texts. So itipiso bhagava arahang, so the worthy one, the arahang. Itipiso bhagava arahang sammasambuddha. So sammasambuddha, this is one word, which is a compound of two words. So the first word is samma. So the word samma comes from, well, it actually has several derivations. One derivation comes from complete or thorough. So samma has the sense of complete. It also has the sense of peaceful. So from samma, which means peace. So samma has the sense of peaceful. It also has the sense of harmonious and harmony. So samma then means complete, correct, appropriate, right, harmonious. And sambuddha, so the term Buddha means awake, which is quite literally what it means. It comes from the verb bujjati, which means to wake up. So Buddha means one who is awake. And sambuddha, so here the prefix sang has the meaning of by oneself. So the prefix sang can have different meanings depending upon the case. It can mean together, or it can mean complete, or it can, in some cases, it appears to mean by oneself. So sambuddha then can either mean completely awakened, or it can mean awakened by oneself. And normally this is understood to have the meaning of by oneself. So part of what characterizes a Buddha in particular is that a Buddha doesn't have a teacher. They may have had various spiritual instructors along the way, but there was no one who taught them how to become a Buddha. They had to figure it out on their own. So sambuddha is then usually understood to mean one who taught themselves how to become a Buddha. So as our most recent Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, he taught himself how to be a Buddha because there was nobody else who could teach him. So sambuddha also can mean completely awakened in the sense that one has again, reach the highest development of wisdom. And then this gets into the question about what distinguishes the awakening of an arahant from the awakening of a Buddha. And that's outside the scope of this conversation. But suffice to say that sammasambuddha then means one who is completely, rightly, thoroughly, appropriately awakened by oneself through one's own efforts. So this also is remarkable because anyone who's been practicing Buddhism for a little while knows that even with thorough instructions and good teachers, it's still extraordinarily difficult to attain awakening. It's extremely difficult even to attain the first stage of enlightenment, let alone full awakening. So recollecting that Buddhas are people who attain a full awakening by themselves without being taught how, it's like, oh, well, if they did it by themselves without instruction, and I have the benefit of having instruction, I have books, I have teachers, I have monasteries, I have places to practice, well, then it should be so much easier for me. So I have such good conditions that I have teachers and instructions and books and a lot of information on how to practice correctly. How wonderful. So it won't be anywhere near as difficult for me. So that also can be very helpful. So the inspiration of knowing that the Buddha attained awakening by himself, but also knowing that we actually have much easier conditions because we have access to so many teachings and instructions. So sammasambuddho, Vijjacarana sampanno. This is the next quality of the Buddha, Vijjacarana sampanno. So Vijja means knowledge. This is from the root vid, which means to understand something, comprehend something, or to find out about something. So vidya or vijja means a body of knowledge, a body of understanding. And in the suttas, the term vijja is most commonly used to mean spiritual understanding. So the term vijja in the time and place of the Buddha, it had a broader meaning. It was used to mean any body of knowledge. So also medicine, like the medical understanding of a doctor would be considered a vijja, or an understanding of physics would be considered a vijja, a kind of vijja, a body of knowledge. But in the suttas, when the Buddha talks about vijja, he uses it to mean spiritual knowledge, so body of spiritual understanding. And charana means behavior or conduct, so how one acts. And the term sampanna means, it's from the verb padati, which means to reach or to arrive at or to accomplish. And the prefix sang, which again means complete. So sampanna means one has completely accomplished something. And so sampanna then gets translated as accomplished or perfected. So Vijjacarana sampanna means one who is thoroughly accomplished, thoroughly perfected in both knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and also in their behavior. So the point here is that Buddha is somebody who not only do they have thorough and complete knowledge of the spiritual path, but also their behavior is impeccable. There's nothing blameworthy about their behavior. They always behave with perfect wisdom and compassion. So a Buddha will never deliberately harm another sentient being. They will never deliberately tell a lie. They'll never deliberately steal anything. They'll never do anything which is morally reprehensible. And also being perfected in one's spiritual knowledge. So this also is that, again, a Buddha thoroughly understands the path to awakening. There's no way to say that a Buddha is lacking in their understanding or lacking in their spiritual knowledge. So having both vijja and charana. So both they have the spiritual knowledge, but also they fully transformed their character, their conduct. So that their conduct is fully in line with that perfect spiritual understanding. So Vijjacarana sampanno sugato. The next term is sugata. And sugata is an interesting word because it's actually quite simple linguistically. but it's quite difficult to translate. So sugata comes from the prefix su, which means good or well or easy, and gata, which means gone. So sugata, literally it means well gone. But what does this actually mean? So you'll see it translated that way in some places. You'll see sugata translated as the well gone one, which to me doesn't really make any sense. But sugata, if we start thinking about what this means in the context of a Buddha, so it's one whose path has gone well, their practice has gone well. So they've gone well, their practice has gone well, as we say in English, a similar kind of idiom. It also means that everywhere they go, it's pleasant, it's easy. So there's a sense of ease. The one who is at ease would be one way you could translate sugata. So they're always relaxed, they're always comfortable. This is because their mind is free of greed, hatred, and delusion. So wherever they go, they're always comfortable. They're always at ease. They're always relaxed because they know that there's nothing anywhere that can disturb their peace of mind. So the peaceful one would be another way you could translate sugata. So you'll sometimes see sugata translated as the sublime one, which captures a little bit of this feeling of the one who is perfectly at peace, perfectly at ease, perfectly comfortable in any place, any situation, because their spiritual practice has gone well, which is, again, the literal meaning of sugata, means gone well. So their practice has gone well, which means they've thoroughly removed all irritants from their mind, which means they're always at ease and comfortable wherever they are. So sugato lokavidu. The next term is lokavidu. So loka means the world, the universe, reality as a whole. And vidu is from the same root vid, from which we get vijja. So vidu means one who understands, one who knows. So lokavidu, this is one who understands the nature of reality. It's one who knows the world, knows what the world is like. They understand how reality operates. So lokavidu, this is indicating an aspect of the wisdom of the Buddha. So that the Buddha has a perfect understanding of the nature of reality. So there's nothing in the world that can surprise a Buddha. They understand how the world works. Lokavidu, Anuttara purisadammasarathi. So Anuttara purisadammasarathi, this is the next one. So this is a compound of 4 words. So Anuttaro means unsurpassable. So literally it means nothing higher. So Uttara means above. So Anuttara means there's nothing above, nothing better. So, and purisadammasarathi, purasa means person. Dhamma here, not to be confused with Dhamma. So the word Dhamma means trainable, one who can be trained, as opposed to the word Dhamma, which means teachings or, for example, the Buddha Dhamma, the teachings of the Buddha. But here is the word Dhamma, D-A-M-M-A, which means trainable. So Purisa Dhamma means a trainable person, a person who's ready to be trained. And Sarathi, literally it means charioteer. So somebody who, in the time of the Buddha, this was somebody who would use horses or other draft animals, and they would train them so that these animals would be capable of pulling carts or chariots or wagons. They would be well behaved, well instructed. They would follow commands. They would do what needed to be done. So it was a Sarathi was a person who could teach animals to overcome their instincts and to behave with perfect self-control and to behave in a way which is proper and appropriate. So the Buddha likened himself in the same way. So just as a Sarathi could train animals, horses and oxen and so on, could train them to perform valuable and appropriate tasks with perfect self-control. In the same way, a Buddha is capable of teaching people how to control their own minds, how to make their own minds perfectly developed and appropriate, how to make their own minds well-behaved and well-maintained in any situation. So Anuttara purisadammasarathi means the unsurpassable trainer of trainable people. So this is pointing to the fact that anyone who came to the Buddha and who wanted to understand the Dhamma, wanted to practice the Dhamma, wanted to be trained, then the Buddha could train them. Note though that this does not mean that everyone who came to the Buddha attained awakening. On the contrary, we actually see countless stories of people who came to the Buddha and either they weren't interested, or they weren't receptive, or they actually did, on some level, they did want to learn, but also they were very resistant. They didn't want to let go of their attachments and opinions and their defilements and delusions. So such a person would not be considered purisadamma, in that they're not interested in being trained. So if one is not interested in being trained, then they can't be trained. Or there were beings which were not capable of understanding. So if somebody is in a condition where they're not capable of understanding, then even if they meet a Buddha, then they won't understand. So our effort then is also to make ourselves trainable, to make ourselves receptive to training, to make ourselves malleable. So that when we're given spiritual instructions, then we're able to alter our behavior accordingly, so that we can take in the spiritual lesson and really fully embody it. So letting go of our defilements and delusions and moving towards awakening. So the purisadammasarathi, the trainer of trainable people, and so the Buddha was capable. Whenever somebody really wanted to be trained and was able to be trained, then the Buddha could train them. And he could train them in the most appropriate way for their character. So the Anuttara purisadammasarathi, the unsurpassable trainer of trainable people. The next quality of the Buddha is Satadevamanussanam. So Satta means teacher. Deva means the angels or celestial beings, the demigods or deities. And Manusa means humans, ordinary humans like me and presumably you. So Satadevamanussanam means the Buddha was the teacher of both devas and humans. So this also is important because what this is emphasizing is that the Buddha was not a teacher only for humans. So also devas, so these divine beings, celestial beings, these angelic demigods, would also come to the Buddha for instruction. They also acknowledged him as a spiritual master who was more perfected than them. So this also is important because it's indicating that a Buddha is higher than even the highest gods. And this is because although a Buddha normally appears in the form of a human, a Buddha has a perfect understanding of the nature of reality, a perfect understanding of the nature of mind, a perfect understanding of spiritual practice, and they have reached the highest pinnacle of spiritual perfection. And that is independent of one's form. So whether one is in the form of a human or the form of a deva or the form of an animal, spiritual perfection is something beyond that, independent of that. So Satadevamanussanam Buddho Bhagavati. So Buddho means he's awake. So the rest of us are still asleep. The rest of us are still lost in our dreams. The rest of us are still living in our own delusions. So we're not quite awake. We think we're awake, but we're not. We're still sleeping. We're still dreaming. We're still lost in our own imagination. So a Buddha, on the other hand, has woken up. So they're fully inhabiting reality as it actually is. So Buddha is not dreaming. They're not imagining. They're not delusional. They're fully awake. They know reality on its own terms. So Buddha means one who is fully awake. These are the qualities of the Buddha. So itipiso bhagava arahang sammasambuddho Vijjacarana sampanno sugato lokavidu Anuttara purisadammasarathi Satadevamanussanam buddho bhagavati. So I'll leave that for your contemplation this morning. So we can respect the Buddha with 3 sadhus, and then I'll see if there's any questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So hello to all the people joining in online. So hello to John, Louisa, Karuna, Yankee, Gita, Meredith, Kim, Sud, Olga, Manish, Ronald, Hai Eng, and Vivian. Welcome, all of you. And I see a question here from Sud. Sud says, I was told in the past that Bhagavan equals Blessed One, blessed with complete development of paramitas, and he shares these blessings with those who brings this quality to mind. Is it also an accurate way to think about this? Yeah, I mean, more or less. Again, he's blessed with complete development of paramitas. Yeah, the Buddha developed all the paramitas, the spiritual qualities, the perfections of spiritual qualities. So that is, in fact, his own blessing for himself, is that he developed these perfect spiritual qualities. And yes, he shares those blessings with others. That's what we have. So we're still living in the era of Shakyamuni Buddha. So we're still blessed by the fact that a Buddha was here in this world not too long ago. So we still have his teachings. We still have the influence that a Buddha leaves in the world. That influence is still strong even today, 2,500 years later. Yes, and bringing the qualities of the Buddha to mind is a way of blessing our own mind through recollecting the qualities of the Buddha. So yes, I would say this is an accurate way of thinking about it. And Hai Eng says, how do we train our mind to let go of attachments to our loved ones, especially at the moment of death? This is a bit off topic, but you can bring it to monk chat this evening. So this evening we'll have our weekly monk chat where you can ask all off-topic questions. And I don't see any other questions related to this topic. So if there's nothing else, then we can go ahead and conclude the session at this time. So again, feel free to join in this evening for our open Q&A, our monk chat, where you can ask all the questions you like. But for now, there's a question here from Spook. Spook says, is it important to know the vocabulary? I want to read but need English translation. If you are new to the suttas, then yes, you can read them in translation. So I recommend Sutta Central. So I just put in a link to suttacentral.net, which is a great resource for mostly English translations of the suttas, also some in other languages, but mostly English translations. So yeah, in the beginning, it's not necessary to know the vocabulary in Pali. But as time goes by, then you will want to start to learn in more detail, especially some of the major technical terms in Buddhism, because many of these terms are difficult to translate succinctly. Again, if we look at the qualities of the Buddha, yeah, you can find many English translations of the qualities of the Buddha, and they'll give you a general idea of what it's talking about, which in the beginning, it's sufficient to just get a general idea. But as your practice becomes more advanced, then understanding the more specific and precise meanings of especially the major technical terms really helps to refine your understanding of the Buddha's instructions. But yeah, in the beginning, it's not necessary. But after a little while, it becomes very helpful. And I don't see any other questions. So I think At this time, we'll go ahead and conclude this session, and we'll see you this evening for a monk chat. So we'll end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, we'll see you next time.